without further ado, let's just bring our panel up on stage. The wonderful Ron Martin, who is the Manager of Education and Community at Unity Technologies. Round of applause, folks. We had this session yesterday. It was like a little bit Jimmy Fallon show. We've got Rock Nakajima, our president of Noitem Internet. Oh, sorry, Jan Andre, co-founder of CTO of Volograms. Rock Nakajima. Keep this applause going, ladies and gentlemen. Let's keep going. And my close personal showbiz friend, Mark Goodchild, founder and CEO of Connected Ideas. Welcome, gentlemen.
Yeah, it's very male, isn't it?
It's well, luckily, it's not very male because, as you'll see, I'm the female and in charge. Thank you.
Of course.
I'm here all day, the rest of the day. Guys, it's been really, really amazing working with you. And I just want to give a little bit of a, Ron will tell you a little bit more about this, but when the IBC Accelerators kind of first started, it was called the Catalyst and only had 3 projects working with the TM Forum in around 2019. And really, the Accelerators really started in 2020 with a Kickstart Day, and everything became remote around the pandemic, and the same for 2021. So it's been so wonderful to see these projects come to life. But Ron, I want to just pass to you as kind of the godfather of the group, our fearless leader. You, from Unity Technologies, and especially in that first year, we see these groups of possibly unlikely players for me. We had, Unity, Unreal Engine coming together, Sky, BBC, RTE, all in this group in 2020. You are returning champion of the Accelerators for the 3rd year running. Congratulations, you get a medal and a hug from me. But tell us a bit about how that started and how this project has metamorphosis in today.
Well, one of the things we discovered was there is a need for change. We understood that what was necessary in the realm of broadcast and also communications was not only a result of how we were creating content, but also how that content was being consumed. So people's devices became more important to them than their television sets. And we watched this rise in how things changed. So we decided in the thought of building and production, and especially when we were targeting real-time 3D production, targeting children's animation and looking at characters and how we could create personas. It was a very motivating opportunity for us to take this accelerated opportunity to develop a workflow utilizing Noitem, utilizing character artists, working with the real-time engines, and being able to fulfill the production requirements to bring these characters to life. However, the challenge was, how did we do it remotely? And one of the best things about working remotely is that we're already developing these characters for a virtual environment. So why not make them in the virtual environment? So using VR with the operation of taking that VR or immersive sculpting and creation, working with companies like Tavori, which is a VR creation system, or Masterpiece VR, which is another character creation system, which literally allows you to put on your HMD, your headset, and craft these characters. So we went through that pipeline, and we came out with really a great number of fantastic findings. So putting those to work, we really had an incredible opportunity to see what the inhibiting factors were in spanning the whole of the globe, and coming together as a production company would if they were all working in a remote location.
Exactly. So bringing us into 2022 really saw the purposes of these challenges start to, you as a group and the new members joining the group knew that you had to start to think differently and quite quickly because of the way the technology changes so quickly too. So, so this is the video, just kind of some highlights from the previous year, just to show you a little bit. So I'll drive this, but if anybody wants for me to pass it down, let me know.
Yeah, this is Rock and his
thank
team.
you, Mark. Mark, go for it.
You should explain what's going on here. This was the first. I think you were just allowed out of lockdown and into the country.
Yeah, this was our first trip. We went to Ireland, and we were just demoing on their stage, on their huge LED wall, a virtual character.
This is RTE,
yeah, the RTE,
Irish broadcaster.
Yes. And that's just using mocap and just showing them really how easy it is to do real time with a virtual character being driven by our motion capture system.
Exactly.
So this is some of the painting
Yeah.
that was happening in Masterpiece VR, where you could actually craft and create this character in virtual reality. One of the most interesting aspects of working in VR in 3D is the spatial awareness and that idea of actually sculpting in space. And it's a very creative means of achieving your desired intent.
Exactly. So we wanted to put this video in to show you a little bit, again, how this project has grown. And this is what was achieved last year. But moving into the learnings around that into this year, Ron, I think you're going to talk us through these next two slides there.
So we realized that there were two different ideas. There was this concept of taking volumetrically captured people, being able to reproduce those people and put them into the broadcast set. Now, working in the field, it becomes a very challenging operation in order to find the time, capture the personalities, the sports persons or the presenters, or perhaps the subject matter. And sometimes you don't have this massive amount of time or equipment. So democratizing this process was very important, and working along with volograms, you could really take a single photograph and turn it into a usable character. And that became a part of your set. And in this instance, we realized that it was a very challenging opportunity to try to do everything in this pipeline at once. So we broke into these two different work streams. We had Team A and Team B. Team B worked on a concept that by building a character, creating a digital host, and then creating digital interviewers, much like what we have here. The concept was to see if we could generate a back and forth type of a dialogue between a virtual character being puppeteered off stage in a live production environment and a host who would interview that character.
Exactly. And then, digital humans is something that's been brought up all over the place, Ron. Why don't you, especially coming from a Unity point of view, you've seen this. I know you're going to touch on this a little bit later in the presentation, but digital humans, digital athletes, the importance of volumetric video in our production work streams.
Recreating a person for a virtual avatar, or recreating someone to capture that moment of that character in posterity for all time, gives us this amazing realization about how important, how critical it is to faithfully reproduce that person. Even in virtual environments, even in an animated character, you have this chance to create one impression and keep that person engaged. So the ability to bring someone to life, the concept of taking that amount of personality and injecting it into your digital character is a really aspirational objective. So, we discovered very quickly there were these constraints around this process. It's highly entertaining when you start thinking of that triangle of time, money, and quality, and most people say, well, you can have two. Take your pick. We decided that we would work as quickly as we could, again, embracing the constraints of real-time broadcast, and say, how quickly can we take these characters and bring them into the virtual worlds? And working remotely like we were, we realized that this wasn't just a means by which we could capture the character and bring them together, but we could put them into a studio live set where it would be impossible to get that person to come in at that point in time. Not only because of perhaps the money and the time it would take to get the person into the studio, but also considering the fact that there weren't a lot of opportunities to go to the places where those people were. So we had to have something that was easy to use, that from a single camera, from a single operator standpoint, we could capture that person and bring them into the set.
Exactly. And I mean, due to the nature of the accelerators, it is a short sprint. But what we did learn this year is that real life was back. And people were going on holidays over the summer. People were away. People have kids. And if you're Nordic and Italian, we respect your holidays, but we're very jealous. Well, let's show us a little highlight. So that's the reason for the Accelerator starting in February in 2023. Then we've got the time to really use the summer to fine tune, and let's present. So Mark, talk us through this little highlights from 2022 that'll be playing. I think I need to click again. There we go.
And it's my great pleasure to introduce you to our IBC 2022 Accelerator project, which is entitled Volumetric Video for Broadcasting, Metaverse Production, and RT3D Assets.
Holograms were specialists in 3D reconstruction technology, specifically capturing of 3D humans, and with this technology that is called volumetric video capture. So what we've been doing essentially, it's revisiting the way that the 3D assets are displayed when they are in a broadcasting environment.
I think one thing we're always trying to do at Fox Sports is create a unique visual difference. We talk about that all the time. And we look for tools that can heighten that production value that we're trying to achieve. And I think that's where holograms can help out.
While the 2D content was described as smooth and polished, the 3D models provided a subjectively different experience because the audience felt as if the players were a part of the studio environment to a greater degree.
I think it's going to be really exciting to watch this technology evolve.
So that's one of our work streams, which we'll hear more about in a minute. And I think the key thing that Ron was saying was we were looking particularly this year around the democratization of, I've come from television background. I look at things like The Mandalorian in awe and going, but I'm never going to get that budget to be able to do a little pilot.
We can dream, Mark.
Yeah, I know. So we set some really sort of, put some constraints on ourselves right at the beginning, going, what's it really like if you're going to do a studio sports show? You're going to get into the studio in the morning. You don't have 5 days to rig the studio. You don't have a team of VisFX artists waiting, building models. Yeah. And in sports, for instance, you don't have access to the sports stars. They're just going to rock up on the day. You don't know what they're going to wear. They'll be in the wrong...
If they rock up.
Yeah, they'll be in green and you'll have a green screen behind you or something. So we sort of started breaking down all these different use cases. So sport was an obvious one. I've done stuff in various different genres over the time, and I love sport because the one thing about sports is the rules of the games don't change. So you've got a constant and you can work around that. And we'll see how the team from RTE, who can't be here unfortunately, worked with the holograms, and they looked at the volumetric. How can you do that cheaply? And then, and we'll go on to the other half of the project was going, okay, so we can get photoreal humans into a studio, but how can we get them talking? How can we get them moving? And I think this is the learning from the accelerators. You don't always manage to achieve what you set out to do. It's experimental. So we actually halfway through had to kibosh some of it, splintered off, and then pulled it back together. So it's probably worth looking at more on the volumetric stuff.
The clicker went AWOL on me. So, but we're humans. We're humans, people. So let's exactly. So a little bit deeper dive into holograms, which Jan's going to touch on in a moment.
Right, so I think you've seen this video in the previous slide. So just briefly what we are working on. Traditionally, like you heard, you bring people into a green screen studio, which is not usually easy, and especially during the COVID, we had to shut down. So we started working on a technology that you could record volumetric video with just a single phone, with a normal camera. And the goal of this project was, or in general, is to make it as simple as you record normal video. So here you can see some of the examples that we did. Also, if you would do this in a green screen studio, you would, in Ireland, all the jerseys are green, so it's very difficult to do. So should I go through the pipeline, how it works?
Please.
Right, so first what we do is we record normal video, and the next step is to break it down, remove the background. We also do segmentation of the person, like where is head, body, arms. And then we use a deep learning algorithm that basically from this can detect the distance, the shape of the person, and also the texture in the areas that you can see from behind. And this model is, in the end, a traditional 3D mesh with a texture that you can apply and put into any game engine like Unity and or a production studio or virtual production studios. Yeah.
So what's really amazing about this is the fact that you can capture this one person, delight them, and then put them into the virtual environment and relight them to match the backgrounds. It was one of the things that we found through the exploration of this use case, that trying to get that character into something that gave us the lighting and the sensibility of the studio was an imperative aspect of that integration. You also saw Rafa, the founder of Volograms, there using that same character in an augmented reality use case, where that character could be something that you could see established in a real world situation through your phone. And that augmented reality is the same type of technology used in the studio, but it gave us this opportunity to really see how that could be taken and put onto a mobile device as well.
Exactly.
Or into onto a tabletop.
Yeah.
With a pundit pointing to the different characters. So there's a lot of opportunity here. I think it's worth saying that I'm right, that the technology was originally designed around being able to do it on your phone and take a selfie and sort of much more of a consumer. But it was when you then started going, you could use it against footage that had already been captured. So you didn't even need to get to the player anywhere. You're going, we got a bit of that player on some footage and then extract it, create all of the depth from it, and the shadows, as you say, were all done programmatically.
So Volograms uses this AI algorithm to be able to detect that, as Jan said, the segmentation there. So it understands parts of the human's body and then builds those details and those aspects into the mesh itself. So it understands how the human physique is being captured and helps create that segmentation or that to better understand what a part of a human anatomy you were starting to create a 3D object from.
Exactly, and some other faces you saw in there were Zach Fields from Fox Sports, who is one of our champions. And this proposal was from a volumetric point of view, which is kind of the original angle the project was starting off at, was proposed by Grace Sinan at RTE, and who couldn't attend today because she had a baby last week. So congratulations, Grace, live on camera. But Jan, can you just tell us a little bit more about, we know, like you mentioned, that B2C kind of initiative at first, but how else is this type of production helping broadcasters in a studio or with experiential and virtual reality, et cetera?
Yeah. So if you go to the next slide.
It's the video.
Our video.
Yes, let's do that.
So actually, initially, the technology wasn't ready for using just 2D image or video conversion. But that's what we were actually adapting it in this project. And the goal was, like you see here in a virtual studio from RT, where they use 2D cutouts of the players that can be captured during the game at any moment. And they place them in the studio, which you don't get the depth. You are limited with how you move the camera around the virtual studio. And if you have a 3D model, as Ron was saying, you can adapt the lighting, you can put shadows on the ground, and it makes it more flexible to move around with the camera.
So in RTE, this is quite a newer XR studio, I believe. And Rock, you've been there before.
Yeah.
So have you the improvements that was?
Yeah, they're using a camera tracking system, and they have a giant LED wall. So this is actually really interesting because they use it. It's a multi-purpose stage. They use it every from sports to even like worship, worship programming. So really, like the ability to bring a volumetric images and and video into this kind of environment is really to add a layer of depth into the production process.
Exactly.
What you can't see here is obviously as the camera tracks, you get that parallax so that you see on all of these LED walls. So it feels like the person's in there, which is the big shift from the traditional sports pundits doing the overlay. But from their point of view, and I'm sure some of you have probably seen some of the big volumetric stuff done on golf, which is like 120 cameras and a
here
rig,
at IBC, so
taken to a studio. I think this is one of the GAA players, so a relatively less wealthy sport, and they wanted to get to be able to do this at the drop of a penny with all the different leagues, etc. So they can literally at the side of a pitch just have someone a crew just get some extra footage, and this with your processing you can then turn it and it can be ready for the studio.
Jan, how long does it take to take that from that snap to getting the 3D model?
I mean, the good thing about this is it's fully automated, so it's in a similar way that you take an image, you drop it in a website, and it gives you back a 3D model. The conversion of a just single frame takes 10-15 seconds, so it's really fast. This technology was developed for a video, so in theory, if you drop in a sequence of images or like a video, it can convert the whole sequence. So you don't have to have just static characters, but it can be a player that walks towards the camera. And this is one of the reasons they actually don't use the footage. RT has a couple of videos where player walks in towards the camera and do some pose. And because of the lack of the depth, they can't really use it in the virtual studio. So this technology will actually brings it in because of having the 3D model.
So just to confirm, did RTE actually use this in a broadcast? Or was it just for the R&D purposes?
So I think because of the summer and the holidays, it wasn't ready.
Yes.
So this is the day before the final of GA game, but because they didn't have time to integrate it in, then unfortunately they didn't use it.
So the intention was there, based off of an IBC Accelerator living R&D project from the year before and this year. A major broadcaster was about to use these learnings into the studio broadcast, but because of summer holidays and time and some of the wrong people being the right people being away at the wrong time, it didn't happen. But congratulations, because that's a testimony to some of these POCs coming to life and actually being put into real life use cases. Mark, dipping into the work stream too. Thank you, Jan, for sharing that with us. Dipping into the work stream too, it kind of, you were attempting to stay true to some of the learnings from 2020, which is around XR spatial design and animation pipelines, led by Rafi Nizam, morphing into 2021, which was really hardcore focus around RT3D, real-time three-dimensional content creation for multi-platform distribution, which we all are very well versed in. Tell us about how the project kind of expanded a bit this year.
Yeah, so we were sort of starting from the same position about having the volumetric characters. What could you do? Sports, good use case. Rock and I like to test things to destruction a bit, and
that's why we love you.
Rock's always and his team are coming up with crazy ideas, and he said, well, could we do a chat show with volumetric characters? And going, maybe. So we started actually, when we played around with the tech, and I think the point of these accelerators is to understand what's working and what still needs, also what isn't quite there yet, and what we need to increase.
A bit of the engineer's motto: break it, put it back together, break it again.
And we've all seen, we've got metahumans, we've got all these things of photoreal people coming together, but when you're doing the mocap, volumetric capture, you're getting. You can get high resolution visuals, but you don't necessarily get the physics because you're actually only capturing the mesh and the textures. So we were trying to work out how we could do this, take one of these volumetric captures, and then could we rig it, and then we put face cap on it and sort of blend the whole thing. The experiments basically would prove we were a little bit ahead of the time of our time. We were just trying to do too much. So we focused our work stream on going, yeah, but the principle's still the same. We want to get real people and virtual people into a chat show so you can see interaction. And we wanted to know whether the games engines that are running this could actually help get that interaction. So we're not talking about sort of like
real life performers.
Yeah. And the improvisation that you
Yes.
get of people chatting and interrupting each other, etc., which is so different from the drama world where you've got a
Yes.
script that you're following and you can shoot it 100 times and you can do it from different angles. If we
Yeah, but
start playing,
we have a montage. Even Rocky had a montage, so I should have probably put that up first. So, thank you. I'm here for the rest of the day. Okay.
So these are the teams. So we've got the Neutum team, who is Rock, Jesse, Juan, and Alex, who are you can go out and see them actually playing with their mocap kit. And then if we move on from.
This is the muted video.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what we were able to do when the team came over for a Soho Media Club, managed to blag a little LED wall, a pop-up stage, and put these things together. Can we dip the sound a little bit? It's just background.
Thank you.
And we've got some student actors to see. It's all very well us being able to do it, but actually when you put it in the hands of performers, proper performers, or wannabe performers, how would they cope? And it was all around trying to see whether they could get comfortable. And in this scene is a real person talking to a mocap character, and they're having a dialogue in real time. And what we filmed down the lens, it could literally have gone straight to air. Mm-hmm. We had a day doing lots of different scenes. We intentionally focused on the interaction. Everything else was cheap as chips, because I wanted to prove again that if you're a small indie producer and you're trying to come up with a concept, you're not going to spend £20,000 on a pilot. I think we spent about $500 on the virtual sets, some characters who already existed. We bought them off the stores, and here we've got a goblin in a space set and they're basically the high concept, if you can call it that, was our. It's a casting agency for NPC characters, and they're being interviewed. And we just played around with it, and you learn what works and doesn't work.
Exactly.
So Eyelined, it was brilliant for.
Yeah.
And I think the artists really came away. It was second nature,
The
really
actors.
quick. Yeah.
Yes. So I saw little bits and pieces on the day. I'm just going to rewind that so you can talk through that again, Rock. Rewind it.
Yeah, we put together basically a virtual production stage in 4 hours, and we had 2 days to shoot, so half a day on the first day and a full day on the second day. So this was very challenging. So we used our Neutum VPS system, which is a quick setup that does both mocap and camera tracking. We set it up in an attic in a building in Soho.
It's not a sound stage. It's like planes going overhead.
It was literally a rooftop.
It's literally a rooftop, but we were able to do work very, very quickly. Just a simple fact that we could put together a virtual studio with camera tracking and the LED wall tracking behind it was already a big step. And then bring in all the mocap and the actors in, and having them interact with with each other, with the virtual character and the real person, and getting the results right away was really something that was incredible, especially for the cost. I think the whole theme about this IBC this year is virtual studios. I think you go anywhere you go here, you're going to see virtual studios. I think we're still trying to understand what they are, how they function, and what is the best case and best use scenarios for them. And this, I think, is probably going to be in the next couple of years, especially after COVID, when people are going to start understanding that they're not perfect for everything. Do you use an LED wall? Do you use a green screen? Do you use pure virtual production? Do you use XR production? Do you use reverse XR production? And so for us, the idea is it doesn't matter. If we can keep it at a price point that gives you, the triangle you were talking about, cheaper, better, faster, keep something affordable, then we allow a lot of people to play around with this and really determine what is the best use scenario.
Exactly. I mean, the word cheap and some of those learnings are around budget. So what this R&D is demonstrating is you can make an affordable pilot with the right kit and the right tools that are still tweaking and in development stuff. So we've got another behind the scenes.
Yeah, so these were just bought off the shelf. So I think they cost about $20 each. And I went through the in this case it was the Unreal store. We had a look at which ones were ready to rig.
That means they had facial blend shapes and everything, so they were basically turnkey characters that we could bring into a scene instantly, which is great. So really, the turnaround time is minimal, and for any type of production,
like it's stored,
you can really do things quickly. Now, the other thing that we were really interested in was the idea of this pipeline not only delivering a final 2D product for broadcast, but what is, and this is probably what we're going to be looking more into the future, is can a single pipeline deliver something that can be used both in VR, in the Metaverse, or in 2D, and in multiple different platforms.
Yeah.
We didn't quite reach that point this year because of time constraints, but ultimately is ingesting all this data, video data, 3D data, into a pipeline, and then outputting multiple platforms, which right now is going to be the big thing, is the Metaverse.
And Rock's team, I said your name right for the first time ever in 3 years. I call him Rochelle. Craig. Okay, Craig. No, not Craig. Noitem joined 2 projects last year and 2 projects this year as a participant. And last year and this year, you're part of the award-winning 5G location-based XR, and now the 5G arena, 5G in the arena of the future for XR events. And what was achieved there was something, utilizing, maybe this is like a little bit more around the animation side of things, but it's also demonstrating the use cases around around motion capture in multiple scenarios, because that was going into real life and a 3D world and athletes.
Yeah, I think in production there's some basics, right? You have lighting, you have
Yes.
video, you have all these like sound, but now we're entering this world where this new thing is called 3D animation, which is going to become a standard part of your toolkit. And how does that integrate in there? It's very new, and because of the demands at the other end of the pipeline of what the consumer wants at the other end, you have to ingest that data, and game engines are at the center of it. So we are kind of redefining. I think everyone sees here that we're redefining what the pipeline is in terms of like you no longer have a mixing table. You're going to be playing with like Unity, for example.
Exactly, and I think we did have the VT of the puppets.
That seemed to have frozen. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
what happened.
it did. Oh, wait a minute. Let's see again. It did freeze. That's supposed to be a video, ladies and gentlemen, that was bringing it up. However, if I speak in grammar, at each of these pods here, and please, their project is right here. You'll see a QR code in the lower third. That will go to the IBC project page, where you'll see all the assets on there and some more assets being added this week. So you'll be able to kind of capture the results of the proof of concepts and these videos. So apologies, that one didn't play. So good segue into the game engine. I'm going to just pass the driving machine down to Ron, unless you want me to drive.
Go right ahead.
All righty, I'll try. So
you're doing a great job so far.
Well, thank you. Women drivers, no stereotype there. But leading the way and just thinking about the use cases around game engine, especially with Unity. We know that our friends at Unreal have had a little bit of spotlight around when Mandalorian came out, and they're our friends as well. But I think it's with you on stage here, it's great that you can explain a little bit more around the importance of game engine, which we cannot live without, in volumetric capture, in motion capture, in these live productions, in a virtual studio. It will never exist, ever. So I'm passing the baton to you to kind of explain a bit more about where this is going now.
Well, what's really interesting is just how the sheer volume of people that are utilizing these real-time creation engines, it's so massive. There's 10,700 people every day that are starting a project inside of Unity. Now, that's a global number, but just to consider the size and the amount of innovation that comes along with that. These real-time engines give people the opportunity to visualize things in different manners. However, it's also an opportunity for them to build tools to create other content. And that's one of the most amazing things that happens inside of the embrace with these real-time engines. It really becomes a concept of what do I want to build today? And as producers, as directors, as creators start to continue to imagine what the possibilities are, they're taking these opportunities in every single direction. one of the most interesting aspects I see are these emergent use cases where there's everything from autonomous vehicles to being able to do, knee replacement surgery in AR. In broadcast, every one of these different use cases can be taken from that real world application and brought into an educational or a journalistic context. As people start to create things, whether they're characters or they're maps or they're sporting events, it gives us an opportunity to learn from those instances and those events themselves and extrapolate the way that the user is going to interact or enjoy that space, that content, or that story you're going to be passing along. So if we look at the different use cases here, you'll see there are so many, and we can go on to the next slide. There are so many different things to consider. So at Unity, over the last few years, we've been really studying the aspects of what it takes to make a digital human believable. I kind of joke about the cusp of this uncanny valley, trying to get over this believability of what a real human looks like. And we have identified a few places, and we can go to the next slide here as well, where it's specific, where we look at someone's face and we instantaneously look for some sort of recognition or cognition and what goes on behind the eyes. And that is so difficult to recreate. So talking a little bit more about going into that future, about what it is, we can go to the next slide there. This one I've outlined in red because it plays a very interesting role in
very on brand.
In where we're going. Capturing someone at that point in time in their life, their career, perhaps their ability to express themselves, what it takes to emote or have that character, that digital puppet of that person, means we can really harness that point in time. And if you think about actors, if you think about the different films that have de-aged or perhaps aged characters, being able to do this digitally gives us a whole career or a lifetime to be able to work with that character. Imagine taking and sampling that actor or that performer over the span of their career. By being able to use technologies of volumetric capture and also photography, we can then recreate that character and put them in places where they'd never been or perhaps would never be able to go, even sometimes resurrecting them from their years past. Let's take a look at some of this video. So this is a video from one of our latest creations. We wanted to improve upon the last digital character we created in a short film called The Heretic that we made. So the concept there was trying to capture the nuances of an expression of emotion. So we took three main steps here, and through the process of using volumetric capture, we digitized an actor. This particular actor's name is Louise, but she's playing a role in our new short film called Enemies. Here you see the data processing or the raw data as it was captured, and you can see using the volumetric capture and that span or that sphere of cameras, you can use a polarized flash to be able to capture all the elements in the smallest details of the face. Then taking that data, we can process it for the real-time engine. Here we're showing off some of the new shaders that we've created, specifically dealing with the human aspects, which we believe are the most important. The psychological aspects, when you're looking at someone and you're seeing them right in their eye, how do we know that they're interested, or what we're saying perhaps might, create some comfort or some relatable aspect of human nature. So we invested a lot in creating an eye shader, and here you can see parts of the anatomy of the eye which are integral to reproducing those emotions. So this is the bump map of the pupil, and the pupil is not as smooth as you'd think it is. The sclera, or the veins around inside of the eye, and you being able to move that around.
That's both fascinating and creepy at the same time, Ron.
And let me tell you, when you get right in there and you're looking at something like this, that shader inside of the pupil, and this is a single graphic shader defining the eyeball, gives you caustic shadows and rendering. And this happens in real time. This isn't something where in the old days you used to be able to put this character through a pipeline and then you'd wait for 12 hours for the render to come out. The hair shader is another thing. And as you see, we're adjusting the sliders on this character's hair and we're changing the color. So we can adapt these characters in real time to match and look better under different lighting conditions as well. The other aspect which is interesting is just how we groom the hair, how you create these hair clumps inside of another piece of software. In this instance, we used Maya and a plugin called XGen. By building that hair, that wig, we can make the hair look exactly the way we want to, and then have it affected by gravity, by motion, and even having self-shadowing and the light entering each hair and diffusing through. What else comes along with our digital human package, which we're shipping this fall, is the subsurface scattering of the skin. I identified skin as one of the challenges earlier. The real-time shader actually allows light to penetrate the surface, bounce off internally, and then come back out. That's what's one of the differences in recreating a real-looking digital human, is to give skin life as well. And that's only capable through this real-time shading system. We've also got peach fuzz on the character. This comes with our hair package as well. So you can see the fine detail there of eyebrows. One of the things that's most important to identify here, and everyone's probably thinking, well, how does this deal with the democratization aspect? This software off the shelf is free to use. And when your company gets to a certain height, you pay what the maintenance fee is, which is $1,850. So that was off-the-shelf Unity. The capture system that was created is another piece of technology that is less accessible to the everyday production entity, but it is becoming more and more popular, that volumetric capture portion. This particular system we used was in the UK. It's called Infinite Realities, and it's a really advanced but really amazing studio for capturing digital humans.
I love thank you, Ron, for sharing that. And I think it's important that this shows there's so much more potential within these verticals, within these workflows that we're just touching on and just being explored. This type of technology you just kind of did a show and tell for wasn't ready when the project started. No. So now we're ready to go for 2023. But I mean, as we're kind of closing down, I really also love what you said there. Something we were talking about over dinner last night around, none of this technology show would exist without a user or a customer or a fan. Everything we are creating is for a person. And it's so important to remember that human element and the empathy. How do we want to make somebody feel when they're watching a program, when they're when they're watching an augmented reality, pop-up happen? And I think Egos just won one of the IBC Accelerator, one of the IBC Innovation Awards, just showing how quickly that wasn't anywhere on the radar 3 years ago or 4 years ago. So just kind of, Jan, last thought from you in a sentence.
If I follow up on the three goals, or that you have the quality, the performance, and cost. So we are there with the, let's say, cost and performance or speed, but we want to really improve the quality, especially on the side and back of the characters that we reconstruct. But really, we would like to push it to the end and get the volumetric video, not just a single frame, into the virtual production, and get it into the broadcasting.
And you're in a good place as a software and developer that you'll be able to kind of create that too. And Mark, last kind of words from you as we're out of time?
Yeah, I think for me, as you said, the timing is all important.
Yes.
And it would have been so easy at the beginning of this to have gone, well, we should just wait a bit longer because Ron's going to give us some really great tech.
I know.
But actually, I think all of the different elements were evolving as we go. But I think there is a slight danger of this paralysis of just wait because it's going to be better next year.
I know, but
and if you don't, you're not playing. And I think for us it was about playing around and actually going, oh, there is a different use case to what we expected. And whilst that might not be ready, the creative juices kick in, and you go, but we could do it a different way. We flipped it in the end from having actor downstage, upstage, and that's in a way liberating. Going back to the democratization, because the stuff is getting cheaper. It'll capture, it'll get faster, cheaper, and everyone will be able to do it. But if you're not having a play now.
Exactly.
You're waiting for someone else to show.
You snooze, you lose, bro.
Yeah. That's what I really enjoyed about the accelerators, was being able to have throw in an idea on a Wednesday night on our Zoom calls and go,
exactly.
Oh, maybe we could do that.
Yeah, and this is your third year as well. I mean, we're running out of time, Ron, but we're going to say, and Rock, final words from the master of mocap.
We're about technology, and we love all these new technologies coming out. But I think you always have to question how you're going to use that technology and what you do with it. Don't just take it for granted. And I think this is what people learned with virtual production during the COVID 2 years. And I think we need to always experiment with it and really find the best use scenario for all these different technologies.
Perfect. Ron, this better be fast.
The last thing I wanted to say was this. Thank goodness that we've had this opportunity not only to share this with you as a collaborative use case. Thanks to IBC for putting this together as the accelerator, because otherwise we would never be working that integrated. We would never, as companies, come together and see how we can work to create these production chains, to be able to show you what we've discovered and how well these different and quite often remote companies get together, combining their talents and their R&D to bring these types of things to realization.
Thank you, Ron. That was lovely. Here's a $5. Thank you, Ron. That was awesome. And it's been a pleasure working with you guys, and I can't wait to do more because there's so much more to do. A huge round of applause, please, for this IBC Accelerator volumetric video for broadcasting, Metaverse production, RT3D assets, Ron Martin from Unity, Jan from Holograms, Rock from Noitzim, and the wonderful, fantastic, close personal showbiz friend of mine, Mark Goodchild. My name is Mookie Callahan. Please come see other projects, meet the team. Expression for interest for 2023 is open now, so we'll see you in 2023. Thank you once again. Thank you.